Hey guys, Karsh here from OneTap, a super short video on how to add profiles into lists. So we talk about how to create profiles, which are like unique records for each visitor who's visiting. So I've explained profiles in a lot of different videos. Once you have created profiles, for example, for students, customers, clients, employees, visitors and guests, what you want to do is you want to go over here to the lists and you want to create a list. So I've already created a list and I've already made a video about this. So what you do is, like, for example, you go over here and then you will click on the list and then you will click on the add profiles button, and then here you will see all the different profiles that are available from the profiles database. To add someone into a list is really simple. All we do is we just scroll up and we just find a name that we want to add. So let's just say, for example, we want to add a people named John, right? So we have like different people, so we can add all these people right here by hitting add selected. And when you're adding a people to a list, what you're really doing is you're registering them onto a list. So like basically, let's say for example, I've already made this class called how to bake cakes, and what I'm doing here is like I'm basically saying I'm expecting to see that person come into class. We can also share a registration link, and we can have them register for the class, which I covered in a different video. But when I add them to a list, basically I'm saying, like, I'm telling the system that like I'm expecting them to come in, so it's like a registration on that list. It's not a check-in. So a check-in is whenever you click on this button and then you check them in. So that's when the check-in time is recorded and that's when the check-in happens. But a registration is just like letting our system know, hey, they're like I'm expecting to see them, so that when I take attendance, I'm going through a list, I'm able to see all the names. And if we go over to our iOS app and like we go into the same list over here, so list, we go inside here, we can actually see all the different like lists, like the names here as well. So basically, for example, if you're giving this off to an instructor, they're going to be able to see all the names and they're going to be able to check people off. So that's what the adding to list does. So if you want to add everyone, you can just go ahead and click on the add all profiles and click on the add all button. This is going to add everyone that's in the profile database over here. If you want to remove people, it's really simple as well. So let's just say, for example, John's not supposed to be there. We hit actions and we do remove from list, and that's going to remove John from that list. And on iOS, what you do is you will go over here, and process is basically exactly the same. You hit this button and you can see all the different people that are in your database. By the way, you can turn on preview fields and you can look at more information. So for example, like if I have other custom fields in there, I can take a look at that and I can see all the data over here below their profile name if they have one. And then what I can do is like I can come over here and then I can find people and I can just add, for example, let's just say for example I want to add a few people, or I can search for their name and I can add them in there, or hit add all to add everyone. Like the exact same flow as a dashboard, and you want to refresh this on other devices so that it updates. And then to do the check-ins, it's like the same as a dashboard. You'll just click on the checkbox here and then you can do the check-ins. Now, we covered how to add people on iOS and we covered how to add people on the dashboard. There's one more way where you can add people. From the profiles tab, you can find someone's name and you can hit actions and you can do add to list, and you can find the list that you want to add them into, and if they're already in there, it's going to say remove. So like the same thing here. For example, let's just take Oliver and let's add him into the list. So we can go over here, we can add that person to the list, close, and then the same thing over here. So for example, we're going to take another person, Thompson, and we're going to add Thompson into the list. Yeah, and to remove people from a list on the iOS app, you like literally just go over to their name. So if they've already checked in, by the way, and you're removing people, you're gonna be deleting the check-in information and like the check-in records. So they don't recommend that. But if someone's on there and you're like, hey, they shouldn't be on this list, you can always swipe over here and you can hit the delete, and this will remove that person from the list. And then the same thing on the iPhone. And then on the dashboard, like we just covered, you have to go over to the actions button and then you have to remove someone from that list. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. That's how you add people. For advanced workflows, let's say for example, you're like a large school, a university, or like just a large organization that wants to do this programmatically, because it really doesn't make sense for you guys to, like, for example, add people in one by one. We do have APIs that support this. Our public APIs do support this, and then it also works with Zapier and stuff. So there's ways you can program that into the system. You can tell our system, hey, this is the list. This is like the list of this is like the name of the event. This is like the name of the event, course, or meeting, and then here's the ID. And you can basically take profiles that are already in OneTap and you can add people into that list. So it's basically like an automated process. Now, the other thing that we want to talk about when we talk about add to list is the recurring list. That's probably like the biggest thing that I think probably is like the most frequently asked question that a lot of people ask about. So when you create a recurring list, so just to recap, a recurring list is basically a list that is like a folder structure. So there's like a lot of different days inside of it based on the schedule. So for example, I created one here called art class, and I set the schedule here for Monday through Friday. I made a whole video about this. And then the system automatically will create a new list based on the days of the week. So it will say, hey, Thursday's coming up. So the night before, it will create a brand new list for that day. So now what will happen here is that we will basically, in order to add someone into a list, what we'll do is we'll go to the parent list right here. And the parent list is supposed to be like the master list. So that's like the roster. So like over here, this is like the main template list. So it's got 13 people in there. So we typically recommend doing check-ins on the child list, as in like the very first list. So for example, I think this started on the 24th. So there's a child list for the 24th. So we recommend doing list check-ins on the first child list, but it doesn't have to be like that. You can obviously do check-ins on the parent list, but the parent list is more so for like the roster of like who's attending and who's not. So what our system does is basically we'll copy over this, like the parent list, all the names on there, into like all the different upcoming lists. So for example, over here, we got like 4 people in this list, right? Now, if I want to remove, for example, a name, if I'm like, hey, Caleb's just not enrolled in this class anymore, we just don't want to see his name in the culinary class anymore. Well, what we simply do is we'll just go over here to, for example, like the culinary class, and then we'll go over to the parent list. I'm going to go ahead and like open this up in a new tab so it's easier to navigate. And we're going to go into like a specific day, for example, like the 18th. So we want to remove Caleb from here and say, okay, yeah, this person's not in there. Remove from list. Gone. Okay, but what you also want to do is you want to remove that person from the parent list, because he's still on the parent list. So if you remove that person from the parent list, in the upcoming days, based on the schedule of the class, the list size is only going to be 3, because Caleb is already removed, and it doesn't, like, our system is going to reference the parent list, and it's not going to copy over Caleb's name anymore, as it says like the size is 3 here. So yeah, that's how you add and remove people from recurring lists if you don't want them to come up in the future. Also, if you go to the settings tab on the parent list, there's also an option here that says auto add profiles. It says whenever you add a new profile into a child list, does it automatically show up on the parent? And basically that setting, what that does is if you add someone, for example, onto this 18th list, let's just say you add someone like Nathan, right? The name would automatically show up in the the parent list. So what it's doing underneath the hood is basically it's just saying that this name is going to be copied over to all the future lists, because that person is now part of the course. So every single sign-in sheet is going to have that person's name. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully the video made sense. Let us know on the community page if you guys have any questions or if you have any suggestions on how this could be done. If you're looking to automate this process, you just don't have time to do this one-on-one or one by one, and for a lot of different lists, please send us a request. There is a API available, and that's for larger organizations and businesses.